Hi everyone, and welcome back. So the next project that we got started to do on the Ranger is a tune-up. So we're going to do the plugs, a PCV valve, fuel filter, air filter, and normally I like to check my short-term and long-term fuel trims before, hook up my scanner and just see what codes I've got, but this one wasn't running very good to start with, so we're going to do the tune-up to start, and then we'll hook up our scanner and see what codes. So just as far as the tune-up goes, we've got the plugs here. I've pulled out the inner fender. This is the passenger side front, obviously, and I just pulled the inner fender out, but you can even just pull the little lip seal here that sits in here to access these. Usually you'll be able to see them, but I just find it easier just to pull out the inner fender. Now, a few things to remember with this. So the gap, what size gap you're going to put your plugs is on your truck. So the easiest way to figure it out, every vehicle is different, is right here on your emissions label. So we have right here. So we've got, that's the gap. So 62 to 68. So that's what we're setting our plugs at. The plugs I pulled out were huge. Okay, here's the plugs I pulled out. But one thing, notice how far below the thread the plug extends. And it's way too far. It's right into the head. And what happens is carbon builds up here on the end and on these threads. And then as you're trying to unthread it, like trying to take it out, it binds up in the engine, in the truck. We can't get it out. So these plugs here, I'll just show you the difference between these two plugs. So there's the one brand, that's the plug I took out of, and that's the one I'm putting in. So you can see the different length. It's quite a bit longer, which is really dangerous too for even hitting this piston. But the big pain is, see these threads? So these threads end right there. So that's about how deep it is. You can see where these threads have been used. But then this extends past that, and it really binds up. So just make sure you got the right plugs for sure. So even if you buy your plugs, say from an automotive place or wherever, just make sure, double check it. You can do, there's cross-reference check charts where you can check your plugs, but make sure they're the right ones that they've given you, because obviously they gave this guy the wrong plugs here. It's amazing he didn't destroy his engine. So this plug, this is trying to take it out. It was in there so hard, I unscrewed it, I soaked it with penetrating fluid overnight, it still wouldn't come out. I then ran the engine till it was super hot, and then soaked it with penetrating fluid again, and finally it came out, but barely got it out. So for my plugs, I like to use this. It's a copper anti-seize. It's high heat. I don't know if you can see their temperature range. Yeah, so it's high heat, and I put that on the threads, but I just put enough on there to just to cover it. I don't go past the end of this, otherwise you can cause a short in your plug, like it'll just jump to that. It is conductive. I use this stuff, it's just dielectric grease, but this is just in an aerosol, but I use this in all the boots, all the plug boots. I use this actually in all my electrical connections. Just keeps the water out of it, keeps water from going in there.
Here's the fuel filter. It's located under the driver's side in the frame rail. So a trick to get these things off is to spray some brake clean right in behind here, right into the fitting itself. Clean it out really good with brake clean, and then use compressed air, and blow it out. And then you can squeeze the tabs to get it out, get your lines off, and that'll keep you from breaking your lines or ruining the fitting. So I just checked the codes, and one of the codes that came up was P0136, which is your rear O2 sensor right here mounted in between the two cats. So I'm going to take that out right now, and I'll just document it as I go along. What I like to do is I just cut the wires right off, just cut them right off here, and then put on a 6-point deep socket, 7/8 for this, 7/8 6-point deep, and then I'll heat the little collar up here till it's nice and red hot, and then hopefully this will come out. Once you cut those wires, you're kind of committed, but I mean it's broken at this point anyway, so it's got to be replaced either way. So hopefully I don't have to pull out the pipe and drill it and tap it and everything, but we'll just cut it off so I get a 6-point on here. You can try and put your wrench on here or an O2 socket, but I find even those, unless you buy a really, really good one, they'll expand when you're trying to undo it. But a 6-point socket, a good 6-point impact socket, won't expand, and it'll usually come out, but we also don't want to break it. So I'll heat this up nice and hot, and we hope we can get that out of there. Okay, there we go. So that's got the new sensor in. It's a little bit of a longer wire, so I'm just going to tie strap it up in here. But I'll go check the long-term fuel trims now, and we'll see how it's working. See if everything's fixed. So here's the number of the sensor I put in. It's a NTK 22500. Another item you want to replace in your tune-up is your PCV valve. It's located right back here. You can see it runs coolant through, well, around it, a tube around it. So it just twists out, twist it out, and then you can pop this tube off first, then you twist it out, and then if you lift it up high, you can take those tubes off without draining all your coolant, and it's fairly easy to do. Another thing I had is my speedometer was jumping and the tach was jumping, and this ground here was broken because of the body lift. I don't know if you can see, there's the ground there. Normally that would go to the bell housing, so I just found the closest bolt to put it on, and that fixed that up, so it's not bouncing anymore. Here for the mass airflow, I just take it out. They're just safety Torx bits, T20s. Just remove it, and then once you're inside, there is these little wires here. I don't know if you can see there, that wire, and then there's one in behind. It's kind of hard to see, but I clean it out with brake clean. Really lightly clean it out, and then really, really lightly blow it out with your air nozzle, but real light, just to clean off if there's a little film on those wires, or if there's a little bit of dirt on it, it'll clean that up and give you a better reading. Next project, I'm going to just take this out here, my idle air control, just the 2 8mm here. Take it out and then flip it over, let it soak with some choke cleaner, carbon choke cleaner, just to clean where the little pintle valve in here shuttles back and forth to allow air in and out, and then I'll put that back on. And that's it. That should have me running pretty good.